Welcome back, Officers Republics, your Coruscant Underworld Police Chief APGAINS. I haven't uploaded a video in like a week, but that doesn't matter. We're here to talk about not only the 3 best free-to-play squads, so sorry if you're 10 million GP, this video probably won't be helpful for you, but more importantly, what we're going to talk about is going forward throughout your progression, Galaxy of Heroes. How can you apply what makes these 3 teams really good and figure out which are going to be your best offensive squads, so you know not only which teams to farm, but also which teams that you should be bringing in offense rather than defense. Now, these types of videos cannot exist without first acknowledging the current landscape of how Grand Arena works. So let's just put down some principles, give you some information, get out of here. You subscribe to make my ego bigger. I talk, funny man makes sound. You guys are happy. All good. Sound good. All right, let's do it. All right, so essentially this is how GAC works for most of you guys, and you guys obviously know this, but we'll do a quick little synopsis for you. You are better than your opponent, but your opponent has more stuff. So you need to be smarter than your opponent and more efficient than your opponent. This can take many shapes. In medium to higher ends, it can look like ship-only defense. And a lot of ends, it can be sandbagging, defense. In some situations, it can be actually playing into certain mechanics of the game, like datacrons to stonewall and defense play offensively. That being said, generally, this is how offensive teams, especially for early to mid-game players, you want them to be put together. Now, let's hop into our little squaddy squad thing here. And we have CLS. And I'm going to use CLS not only because he's the best early game free-to-play team and probably one of the best teams in the entire game, but he very properly illustrates how these sorts of mechanics work. Now, so what are the 2 main things that we want out of an offensive squad? We want max banners, obviously, banner recovery, so we can get more points. More points at the end of GAC means big fat Dabaruskis for you, but also he can be undersized, and undersized also gives us more banners. And as we talked about 2 seconds ago, more banners equals more points equals more Dabaruskis, right? So we want teams that either have one, if not both, of those core ingredients. Now, there are other useful offensive teams that we're not going to talk about today, but those are kind of like your Qui-Gon Jinns, your win at all costs, not great banners, people are dying, but you're going to get through it. Those are very necessary, especially in the mid to late game, but those are not the teams we're talking about today. So CLS obviously has undersized potential. You can run CLS Han Solo Chewbacca. You can run CLS Han Solo Chewbacca 3PO and Chewie. You could run CLS Chewbacca by themselves. You can split them up in 3v3 to go Han Solo Chewie with some random leadership, and then CLS 3PO and someone else there, right? You have plenty of ways to mix and match, but most importantly, you have ways to undersize. And with Chewbacca's Zeta that allows recovery, you also have protection and health recovery, giving you more banners. Kind of like the perfect team, right? I think CLS to this day is still the best team in the entire game. Maybe the greatest team in the entire game, because a lot of people get that great versus best debate. I'm not going to go into, LeBron versus Michael, Messi versus Ronaldo, all that sort of good stuff. But what I mean is, for what they take to invest, which is not very much, you can punch up a ton. You can undersize. You can get recovery. You can place them on defense. You can use them to clean up Galactic Legends. This team is probably the best team in the entire game. In my opinion, the most valuable team in the entire game, and a perfect place to talk about the concepts of what makes a good offensive team: recovery and undersizing. In that same vein, we have the Bounty Hunter team. Very, very, very similar concept, and especially if you're the early game, you can mix and match depending on how you're progressing into the mid game, and especially in the late game, this is still a very, very viable, very, very useful team. This is probably my second favorite team behind CLS. It might even be, 1A to 1B, how much I like these 2 teams, and you guys all know that. Same concept, Bosk allows health and protection recovery. Because of that health and protection recovery and some of the kits of Mando and Grief, or, maybe you have your first Omicron, you throw it on Zam, you can undersize, you can get max banners. Now, the way this team evolves into the mid game and especially into the late game is you take Bosk lead out, so you have less recovery. You throw Aura Singh in, so you have a faster Annihilate from Mando, but with Grief's recovery, plus Zam speeding you up, making you hit harder, making you more survivable, and Aura Singh allowing you to recover health and protection on kills, you can still get those recovery banners, those max banners, and especially allow you to punch up by, sniping out a Darth Revan Malik. This team, especially underutilized, is still one of the better Darth Revan counters in the game. You can use it if you mod your Mandalorian a certain way, make him super fast because you can't rely on those attack out of turn crits. You can have this team snipe gas, so if you don't have a great gas counter. If they're fast enough, you can still snipe cat to do a cat JMK cleanup. I use them a ton to, get rid of a royal guard or something like that against Lord Vader, or wherever they may be. This team is especially amazing at doing all sorts of things in the early game with boss lead, in the mid game with aura, and in the late game with just steezed out of its mind. Not to mention that they have a brand new Datacron set right now for bounty hunters, also giving turn meter on special abilities to the dark side characters, which would be Aura Singh, Zamwesel, and Bosk. This team is fast, this team is dangerous, this team recovers, and this thing is amazing on offense. And then the third type of character is pretty obvious to all of you, so no big shockers here. Like and subscribe to help boost my ego, but it's Darth Vader. Obviously, Darth Vader is the best character in the game by himself. The first Zeta you should apply, the first Relic you should apply no matter what you're farming. When you're a new player, this is always where you go, and this encapsulates the next concept of what you want an offensive team to be like. Sometimes you can straight up solo teams, right? You can Vader, you can Wampa, you can Malik, you can Maul, you can do all sorts of crazy things depending on where you are in the game if you find the perfect opportunity. You can Nest. I totally forgot Nest because I haven't farmed my Nest, but a lot of people, I highly recommend farming Nest if you can. I, skip over it because I don't need Nest, but I probably will eventually at some point. I've kind of gotten to the point where Nest can't really do much for me anymore, so I've kind of missed the boat on that, especially because I was doing sort of other stuff, but Nest is a great example as well. Sometimes it's nice to just see an opponent and be like, oh, there's Padme, Nest. There's Padme, Malgus. There's, if you're a low-end player, there's Geonosians, Vader. There's, I use Darth Vader with his current Datacron to solo Galactic Legend Rey, right? Like, sometimes you just have a great opportunity not to undersize or recover with the CLS, not to snipe, recover, undersize with the bounty hunters, but sometimes you have a great opportunity just to solo with Darth Vader, and a lot of times that is amazing value in and of itself. Now, you can obviously plug characters that are soloable into other teams, right? Like, I can plug my Vader into a Empire team. I can plug him into a Sith team over here if I was crazy, which maybe I would potentially do if this Datacron expires when it expires. You can plug a Nest into a smuggler team with Dash Rendar. I know his Datacron's expiring, but even without the Datacron, you throw Vandor Chewie in there and that team's great. You can throw these solo characters anywhere, right? Like Wampa has to specifically be a solo character, but Malik, you have your Darth Revan team or whatever your Sith Empire team looks like if you haven't placed them on defense. Assess the situation. If you know that you can go Darth Revan, Bastila Fallen, and some random low-gear Sith Empire against one team and throw in Malik outside of that Sith Empire team and solo and get two teams and good banners, undersized banners with the Sith Empire team and solo banners with the Malik, if you know you can split up one team into two high banner wins, especially when your opponent's a much larger GP player than you, that's exactly the situation that you want to put yourself in, right? So these are the basic concepts of offense. I'm sure most of you guys already knew this. If you already knew all of that sort of good stuff and you still stuck around, let me know in the comment section. Tell me you're part of the, at this point, honestly, we're down to 4% of people are watching past 8 minutes. So if you're part of the 4%, let me know. RIP the 6%, shout out to the 4%. But thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I love you, and I'll see you later.